Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
And good morning, Cayman. I'm Donna Bush in this beautiful and bright Monday morning here in the Cayman Islands for Mr. Orit Connor. We wish him a wonderful day off today. With me in studio this morning, once again, I have the pleasure of having in studio Councillor Mr. Austin Harris, as well as MLA for Prospect, and our recently appointed Whip of the Legislative Assembly. We're going to jump right into it this morning because we know it is going to be a busy Monday morning. And for you, our listeners out there, we know you're on your way into work, most of you. We'd like to invite you to join us by giving us a call and asking any questions or voicing any concerns you may have this morning. Again, the number just given to you, 1-800-534-8255. That is the toll-free number to call, as well as 949-8037 or 925-3261. That is the WhatsApp and text number. Mr. Harris, thank you so much for being here with us.
Always a pleasure to be with you. Good morning to you, Donna. I'm looking forward to our discussion this morning. Always enjoy spending time with you. Likewise, I want to say a very special good morning to our listeners tuned in this morning. Wishing them, of course, a very happy Monday and hopefully what will be a successful week ahead.
Yes, well, the first thing Monday morning, we have a group of, 14 to 19-year-olds who are going to be in the Legislative Assembly this morning.
Yes.
We'll be providing, of course, live TV coverage at CIG TV, as well as right here on Radio Cayman or on Breeze FM 105.3, starting at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. These young people will be on the floor of the Legislative Assembly after months of preparation. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on this process and what do you think it does for our young people?
Well, thank you for that question, Donna. Yes, kicking off this morning at 10:30, I believe, is the kickoff for the 11th Youth Parliament. That is the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Youth Parliament. Kicks off today at 10:30 in the Legislative Assembly and is expected to last until about 2:30. I think there will be what I think are going to be riveting debate topics put up by our young people, as you pointed out, some 19 young persons, 10 girls and 9 boys. The two somewhat controversial topics, to say the least, will be the first seeks to amend the elections law to mandate that candidates reside in the constituencies in which they will otherwise seek election, which I think is, again, a very topical and sometimes, in some cases, depending on who you ask, a controversial topic.
Many people will probably wish today that was a real topic before.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, who knows? Who knows if it may not necessarily be, an actual motion that goes before the Legislative Assembly before this administrative term is over, because obviously I've got some thoughts and considerations on that topic. The other one seeks to amend the education law to raise the compulsory school leaving age from 17 to 18, as well as to reintroduce compulsory A-levels in all of government schools. So, two very hard-hitting topics that obviously, at least the latter, certainly hitting home to the age groups of persons who are participating in this 11th Youth Parliament, but also the First Amendment showing that these are topics that our young people are thinking about, obviously preparing to debate on. So that suggests a level of political maturity in these individuals as well. To your first question, what do I think Youth Parliament does for our young people in our country? There isn't a great deal of, we started to introduce civics, let's put it that way, into our school curriculum. In a country that considers itself largely political in nature, everyone talks it, whether it be around the water cooler. Certainly it's the primary topic in most of your morning and even some of your evening talk shows. I think it's encouraging to see our young people participating in youth parliament. I think it raises the level of awareness of young persons who can say, listen, as I'm graduating high school, the things that I aspire to in my career can include a career in politics. It prepares them for it. It allows young persons to interact with sitting members of the Legislative Assembly. Certainly want to shout out the trainers who have been working with the young parliamentarians who we'll be hearing from today, certainly chaired by Councillor Barbara Connolly,
yes,
Councillor David White, MLA Kenneth Bryan, and of course, the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Ezard Miller, and Opposition Member Arden McLean. So, a wide cross-section of persons giving guidance to our young people, certainly in the case of the Opposition Leader as well as Opposition Member Ezard Miller and Arden McLean. These are persons with years of experience in the parliamentary process. Take nothing away from their abilities, and certainly, as we talked about last time, nothing trumps experience, and these two individuals certainly have significant experience in the Legislative Assembly and parliamentary process. Arguably, Ezard Miller, the Leader of the Opposition, is certainly considered one of the most knowledgeable persons as it relates to the legislative process. Certainly, he knows the standing orders like the back of his hand, which is, of course, central to understanding how to move motions and bills and amendments through the government process, something that, honestly, I'm still learning. So I want to congratulate those persons who have provided the guidance and training to these young people. But most importantly, I want to congratulate the 19 young persons who have spent the last few weeks preparing for what will be today, I suspect, a very successful youth parliament.
Again, it all gets underway right here on Breeze 105.3 at 10:30 this morning, as well as our CIG TV coverage, all at 10:30. And then a re-airing tonight on 89.9, that's Radio Cayman at 7 p.m., as well as on CIG TV following For the Record at 8 o'clock. Mr. Harris, I've watched Youth Parliament over the last few years. That we've had the privilege to be able to air it live, and I have to tell you, each year it just gets better and better.
Yes.
And it really, it's the credit is, like you said, to their trainers, the persons who are involved in politics, that are able to impart all of their knowledge. But you look at some of these young people, and you just see an incredible future, even on the floor of the LA ahead of them. I mean, so impressive. Absolutely. I'm like, you know what? Some of our politicians could probably take a page out of their books. They're just...
You're not lying.
Yeah.
You're not lying at all. Certainly, to your last point, those of us who are elected today, I would encourage all members to attend today's Youth Parliament. Certainly also encouraging members of the public to do so. Yes. We know the parents and guardians of the youth parliamentarians who will be participating are likely to be there. But I take your point that it is a terrific opportunity. Their maturity in terms of their preparation for the Youth Parliament, I think they're, aside from 4 young persons, 15 are first-time youth parliamentarians. All of them are in high school, with, I believe, the exception of 3 who are University College of the Cayman Islands attendees. But again, it suggests a level of maturity and awareness to the political landscape, and certainly a willingness to learn not only about the process, but also what are some of the key issues that are important to our young people. And I think it's for that reason that I encourage sitting members of the Legislative Assembly to attend, because, we oftentimes have this conversation about talking to young people as opposed to talking with young people. And this Youth Parliament gives us that opportunity, specifically for the trainers, but certainly the wider majority who will be in attendance for the debates today, to really listen to them, hear what their thoughts and passions are, and of course gives us the opportunity to engage with them on issues that are important to them. So certainly I'm very excited about today's Youth Parliament. It will be the first Youth Parliament that I will attend as a sitting member of the Legislative Assembly, so it's somewhat very special for me.
Yes.
We talked about the trainers, but certainly I don't want to take anything away from the clerk of the Legislative Assembly, Mrs. Zina Marin-Chin, who has really done some phenomenal work behind the scenes working with these young people. This is certainly not her first rodeo.
No, it's her baby.
It is her baby. She's very passionate about the work of the Youth Parliament. I just want to give her a particular shout out this morning. And also I want to acknowledge the sponsor, the major sponsor for this year's Youth Parliament, law firm Harney's. I want to thank them for coming on board, and in particular, providing the opportunity for our young people to gain this valuable experience. There's a cost attached to everything. Mostly the costs are associated with feeding these young kids. And certainly, again, our partnership with private sector, in this case this year with Harney's Law Firm, is essential for the ongoing success of this program.
And of course, you have the cost of some of our youth parliamentarians from our sister islands coming over.
Correct.
As well. So again, like you said, it's all made possible by Harney's, and we want to say thank you to them. Of course, another important thing happening today, and today is Commonwealth Day, and this is the reason that Youth Parliament is actually happening each year on Commonwealth Day. So it will open with Speaker of the House, the Honourable Makiva Bush, reading Her Majesty's message, and then followed by the Honourable Premier, Mr. Alden McLaughlin, will then officially open Youth Parliament today. So we encourage you to tune in to Breeze FM, that's 105.3, as well as the CIG TV, all starting at 10:30 this morning. So once Youth Parliament is over, after months and months of preparation, on Wednesday, literally 48 hours later, our real elected officials will hit the floor of the Legislative Assembly. What are some of the things? I know last time you were here with us on For the Record, we touched very briefly on what some of the topics were going to be.
Right.
Where are we at now? What can the public expect to hear our elected officials bring to the floor this time?
Well, I think we have certainly an interesting agenda for this, the third sitting of the Legislative Assembly for the 2017-2018 period. We will have 2 government bills. I think it's 4 government motions, a number of government statements and reports which will be tabled on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, obviously making them for the first time now a public document and available to members of the public in their perusal. There will be a number of private members' motions from members of the opposition and independent members, and there will also be a bevy, I think at last count, 23 parliamentary questions, which of course is an opportunity for members of the opposition and independent benches to ask questions of the presiding government. And I think some of the questions are rather poignant. Some of them touch on key national issues, many of which we've talked about before, but seeking broader clarity on them. So I think it's a very interesting agenda. From the government's bill side of things, we will be seeking to make an amendment to the trade and business licensing law, in many cases to simplify the application process as it relates to ongoing discussions from our existing business community. Some examples are the submission of documents, a move towards greater e-commerce, so we can now submit these application documents electronically, as opposed to the time-consuming effort of printing them, driving them down to the board and submitting them in person. Again, I think it's encouraging to see that we're seeking to improve efficiency in this regard. We are seeking to remove some requirements, particularly for Caymanian business applicants, things like the requirement of a utility bill in the application process. That will make Caymanians exempt from that process. But likewise, on the renewal of trade and business licensing, we're now making it a requirement that in addition to the necessary documents associated with the trade and business license, those businesses seeking to have their licenses renewed will also have to be compliant with both pensions and health insurance. And again, these are subjects that we can remember from the Office of the Complaints Commissioner about the significant number of companies that have not been in compliance with these 2 important laws. Of course, again, as we talked about, whilst they may seem, cold at face value because we're talking about laws and bills, but these laws and bills impact human lives at the opposite end. So, companies can take on a new employee, but, in many cases, some companies will require pensions and health because it is a legal requirement. They'll take from their employee, but not necessarily make the same reciprocal contributions themselves. So we're trying to reduce the challenges that have occurred in the past by addressing them at the trade and business renewal licensing process itself. So these are some of the broad strokes that can be expected in the Trade and Business Licensing Amendment Bill 2018. It will be brought by the Honourable Minister, Joey Hew, and of course he will speak to it, and we can expect, obviously, to hear some broader details from him. The second government bill, which will be presented by the Honourable Attorney General, will be the Youth Justice Amendment Bill. Just two clauses seek to be amended in this bill. Number one, it will seek to make provision for younger persons to be cautioned. Now, the way the law defines younger persons is anyone under the age of 18. Yes. Previously, obviously, the rules for treating young persons or young offenders were somewhat different. It's unfortunate that we have to now make provisions to allow persons under the age of 18 to be cautioned, but I think it's a sign of the times, and it's what we have to address. The other part is more so aesthetics, removing the wording "Her Majesty's pleasure" with now the words "the court's pleasure" to make it more complementary with the new Constitution 2009.
All right, we're going to take a break here now, and for the record, when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Councillor Harris this morning. And good morning. If you're just joining us, I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orritt Connor this Monday morning, this beautiful Monday morning in our beautiful islands. We're so blessed to be from some amazing, amazing islands here in the middle of the Caribbean. With me in studio this morning, if you're just joining us, is Councillor Austin Harris. And before we went to the break, we were talking about some things that are going to be being brought forth in the third sitting of the Legislative Assembly for our elected officials this coming Wednesday. Before we went to the break, we were talking about a couple of the bills that'll be coming forward, and we were talking about particularly the Justice Bill.
Yes, the Youth Justice Amendment Bill.
Yes. So you were saying that those that are going to be affected by this are young people under the age of 18, and can you just remind us of what the bill seeks to?
Sure, absolutely. I think the primary amendment will seek to make provision to allow younger persons who are defined under the law as persons under the age of 18 to be cautioned, obviously by police and authorities. It is troubling that we have find ourselves in this scenario where again we have the issue of whether it be violent behavior or inappropriate behavior or perhaps even borderline criminal behavior coming from our young people. But we have heard it for a number of years. So it's a painful subject, but it's a real subject.
Yes.
We've heard about things such as bullying past the level of what we otherwise anticipate and expect in a school environment. We've heard about things like gangs in schools. We've heard some horrible stories about, the violent nature of what our young people are doing, whether it be in school or out of school. We talk about, the issue of, fathers being in prison, but of course now being joined by their sons, second generation. So, it's an uncomfortable subject, and believe me, I would much rather be sitting here talking about something, more happy and more rosy. But this is one of those uncomfortable subjects that we have to face on. We have seen significant concerns where young people have perhaps demonstrated violent and/or perhaps borderline criminal behavior, and this hopefully will be an opportunity where we say, listen, you've committed an act, and now you're being cautioned. The caution comes before, of course, a formal charge.
Right.
And I would like to think that this approach will serve as, a greater deterrent to young people for them to realize the significance of their actions and, of course, the consequences of those actions should they continue down a certain path. Certainly it will obviously assist the police services and the authorities in dealing with violent offenders or offenders in general. But I do hope it's an opportunity, kind of like that very popular, I think it's an A&E show called Scared Straight.
Yeah.
Where they take young offenders, young wannabe thugs, and throw them into an adult environment and say, listen, this is the end result of the road in which you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go down that road? I believe it also works in conjunction with efforts that we are seeking to establish within our schools to be able to identify from an earlier age at-risk youth, so that we can, again, begin to proactively attempt to stem the tide of violent behavior or inappropriate behavior or criminal behavior in our young people coming through our school systems or just coming up in society in general. So I consider this, whilst, again, an uncomfortable subject to be dealing with, I think it's a proactive subject that the government is saying, listen, we acknowledge that it's not all wine and roses in our country. We acknowledge that we have a few cracks in our otherwise shining armor. But we can, complain about it, we can ignore it, or we can seek to proactively do something about it. So certainly, I look forward to hearing the presentation of the Honourable Attorney General on this point, and I would encourage members of the public to do likewise.
We're going to continue our discussion on crime in Cayman, but right now we have two callers on the line. Let's go to the first caller. Thank you for being here with us on For the Record this morning. Do you have a question or a comment to make?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you for your call.
Yeah. Yes. I just want to say this morning, there was an incident in Countryside this weekend, and it seemed like it took forever for the ambulance paramedics, or whatever we call them, to get to this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothers me to the fact Saturday how things was being handled. I never heard no ambulance come in, and someone called me the next day and said that they came in there quiet, no siren, and they left out with no siren. But I just want to say that our population is growing, and we got like 3 or 4 new moon hotels going to be built on this little baby island that we call the Cayman Island. And we got just 2 or 3 ambulances at the Georgetown Hospital. I really truly believe that this need to be looked into, to the fact that every district should have their own ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I saw happen on Saturday, it was uncalled for. When I was coming up after 3 o'clock, the road was smooth going down on the Pleasant Highway, and it was smooth coming up, and I went straight into Countryside.
Right.
So I don't know what took the individual so long to get there, but I'm just saying this morning that the government needs to look into some more paramedics or ambulance on our island, because then if we don't have to save lives, we just leave the people alone. And like you said, Austin, it's not about this wine and rose thing here in the Cayman Islands anymore, because then so many things are happening and going through the crack, and nobody's showing no great concern to a certain extent. We are out here being quiet. If we give the police some information, then we are being targeted out here to an extent. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say this morning that we seriously need to look into having an ambulance in every district in this Cayman Island. And another thing, Mr. Austin,
yes, ma'am.
The Jackson Point up there on Church Street and Rubis,
mm-hmm.
I really truly believe they need to have their own 24-hour service fire truck in that area, because if there anything breaks loose, half of Cayman is gone, and our fire trucks at the airport will never be able to get in up there. So I'm just pleading this morning that we need to wake up and stop taking everything for granted and stop going to sleep at night like we're still in paradise and nothing can happen in the Cayman Islands. We need to wake up. So this morning, anybody who listens in regards to this, what I'm talking about, endowment department, we need to wake up. So we can get all this free concession. No, if they're going to give free concession, tell me what you're going to do for my island. Don't tell me you're going to give me employment and half of my Caymaners are still not working. We need help.
Caller, if I could just ask you a quick question. Are you aware of the situation that was taking place at Countryside, how serious the situation was? That may shed some light on priorities when it comes to the ambulance. I'm not making... at Savannah. Do you know what the situation was in Savannah?
I rather not say anything. Say it on God's truth. I rather not say anything in regards to it. All I knew, it happened, and I really don't want to say anything in regards to it, to respect the individual and the people up there. I don't want to get into any details in regards to what may have taken place or what had looked to be taking place in my eye of view. All I knew, it took forever for the ambulance to get there.
Okay,
all
caller.
I knew, it took forever.
Thank you so much for giving us a call here and For the Record this morning. We're now going to go to a break. We'll be back shortly. And welcome back to For the Record this Monday morning. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orrit Connor. We hope he's having a good morning thus far. Joining me in studio today is Councillor Austin Harris. He's also the MLA for the District of Prospect and the newly appointed whip for the Legislative Assembly. Again, the numbers to call us on are 1-800-534-8255. That's a toll-free number, as well as 949-8037. And you can WhatsApp or text us on 925-3261. We're going to go straight to our phone lines. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, and thank you for joining us here on For the Record. Do you have a question or comment?
Good morning, Ms. Bush.
Good morning.
Good morning, Councillor Harris.
Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome, sir. On your topic there about the Youth Act appeal, you said there will be caution. It's going to bring in a caution law, amendment to the law.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. It will. The Youth Justice Amendment Bill will make provision for younger persons to be cautioned, and of course, the law defines younger persons as persons under the age of 18.
Okay. What happened with those older ones above 18?
Well,
will they just be dragged and be charged? Or?
No. I mean, no. The persons above the age of 18 presently, are all allowed to be cautioned under the existing law. Cautioned, and then of course, the usual procedures are caution, then a charge, and then potentially, a conviction if it goes that far. But this amendment seeks to introduce the ability to caution persons under the age of 18.
Okay. Now, I just want to say something here. I think you weren't even born yet when I was raised up in the BRAC. Back in the 50s, that was.
Yes, sir.
But we had a gentleman there called Mr. Ashton Rutty. He was the district administrator of the BRAC, for the BRAC. Of course, we were under Jamaica rule back then, too. I think that's what makes it a lot of difference. Now, when these we had the same problem back then with these youth. We never had that many because there's not that many people in the BRAC. But when these youth got out of hand, Mr. Rutty would call them and the parents and said, listen, you have two alternatives, two options. You ship out, get your passport, and ship out. Or you go into
reformatory jail. School.
Or reformatory school. Back then we had that in Jamaica, yes. Well, when I said ship out, it was either if they got really bad, then they went to reformatory school in Jamaica. If not, then they went on the ship. And Austin, Mr. Harris, I heard you just said last week, you had a good friend that he must have Googled some of these agencies with the shipping, and he gone back to sea. He's on the ship, correct?
Yes.
Am I correct in saying so?
That's correct.
And that gentleman is probably in his 30s or 40s.
Yes, I think he's in his mid-40s.
But has it ever occurred to the government that we could actually do something like that? Get these young people away from Cayman. Get them in the army in England. England is responsible for our safety here in Cayman, in the Cayman Islands. Get them in some service over there, whether it's the Army, Navy, the Coast Guard. Get them away from the island. Call them in and say, guys, listen, you're beginning to be rude and you're going down the wrong road. You have a choice. Ship out. When I mean ship out, that's what I meant by being ship out.
Sure.
We have a lot of shipping. We got more shipping now today than what we had back in the days when I went to sea. And a lot more money also.
Yes.
So I would suggest, or I shouldn't say I suggest, but I could see that as being a good alternative for our youth.
Yes.
They need to get off the island. They need to get somewhere where they can learn discipline. And those areas that I spoke of, trust me, you will learn discipline in those services.
All right, Mr. Stanley, thank you so much for calling us this morning here on For the Record, and your points are taken. I'm sure Mr. Harris is going to address those points that you've made. Just talking about reformatory school, though, I mean, I'm a few decades old.
Yeah.
But, I always heard about reformatory school, and I'm aware of some persons who are in their 50s and even their 60s who went to reformatory school back then. It would be interesting to get some data on exactly where their lives are now as a result of going to reformatory school. And I bring that up because the few people that I know, their lives didn't turn out much better once they came back home.
Right.
So is that the answer? I'm not quite sure.
I think you raise a very good question, and be curious to get the statistics, particularly so we can compare apples to apples as opposed to just sort of guessing our way through the conversation. I want to thank the caller for his questions. I think he made a number of valuable points talking about child rearing in the 50s versus the way they are today. Again, even in my generation, I went to high school when the paddle, corporal punishment, was still included in the curriculum or in the classroom environment. I really now today, of course, being a parent, I'm of two minds on the subject. I
You're
believe,
on the fence, are you?
Well, a little bit on the fence. I mean, I certainly see the value of that corporal punishment and what it instills. Certainly for me, the threat of corporal punishment was enough in my high school experience to keep me in line. Yeah. But certainly there is value in it. But there's also, on the other side of the coin, there's also the opportunity to go overboard.
Exactly.
I mean, you have some big teachers. Back in the day when I was in school, the paddle was a piece of board, that was, sort of shaped like just a little smaller than a cricket bat, and probably just as solid, So I can certainly understand the argument for both sides.
Right.
But I want to take the caller up on the point of our maritime history, and in particular the National Coast Guard. I think this was a subject that we talked about the last time we got together. One of the aspirations of this government as part of our initiatives towards national security, but also addressing concerns in terms of gaps in search and rescue, is for the creation of a National Coast Guard. We believe that National Coast Guard will have obvious ties to our maritime culture, the days when Cayman and Caymanians were considered the best seamen in the world. That certainly will allow us to reconnect with that. But I take his point absolutely 100%. That, we talk about reform schools. If you have a wayward youth who perhaps shows signs of taking some of the wrong paths or making some of the wrong decisions, then again, the National Coast Guard would be one of those corrective measures that could be used to change that mindset in that young person. So certainly it is something that I can say to the caller that the government is cognizant of. Certainly discussions are being had in this vein in terms of persons that we can draw and bring into the National Coast Guard. Of course, it won't just be persons needing to be reformed, but certainly it is an inclusion for that.
Right.
Today we have the Cadet Corps, which again isn't just intended for persons needing, to be reformed, but it is an avenue that is made available for those purposes.
Yes.
And again, the whole point to identifying at-risk youth early is so that we can change the direction that they're heading in, whether that be mostly through conversation. It may have a lot to do with their living conditions. It may have a lot to do with who they're exposed to. In many cases, it may just be the fact that they've never had anybody tell them to care enough for them. Some kids have just never heard the words "I love you." Some kids have never heard the words "I'm proud of you." They're used to perhaps a different way of being raised, and that has obviously negative impacts on their psyche, their character, and who they become in adulthood. So there are many factors to addressing the issues that are relevant to our young people. Again, like I said, on the corporal punishment side, I can understand both sides of the argument, but the point is that we have other more successful avenues that we know this can work, and it can change the direction of a young person, and certainly the National Coast Guard is one of those. I just want to correct you for one thing, because you said it twice, and I didn't make too much of a big deal the first time, but because I know there's some folks on the other side listening, and they're going, "Oh, what are they calling you?" I am the whip of the government, not the whip of the Legislative Assembly.
Yes, thank you for that correction.
No problem. It's a minor detail.
We have another caller on the air. Thank you for joining us here on For the Record this morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, sir.
Harris.
Good morning to you, my friend. Thanks for taking the time to call in.
Yes, sir. I want to change the subject, sir.
Yes, sir.
When I went for my very early morning walk this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and my walk is the South Sound Road, I was very shocked to see what has begun to occur by the dock.
Which is?
I see fences put up
Going to be
to the
building a
east of the
boardwalk.
dock for construction. Now, we talk about communication. And for heaven's sake, we got WhatsApp, we have text, we have this, we have that, we have email. But yet still, government fails at good communication. They've talked about a boardwalk in quotation marks along South Sound Road, going east from the dock to a certain point up towards Red Bay. I don't know how far. I have asked and requested that they have a public meeting, either at the dock, where people can on site see what they're talking about, or like on a Saturday afternoon, or have it at the South Sound Community Center. Recently, when I saw a team of Public Works, NRA people, and I don't know, about 10 of them there, I asked them again. I said, are you all going to have a public meeting on this subject? They said they would talk to the powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that public meeting has not occurred. Therefore, we're back to Marl Road as to exactly what is proposed along there. So I have been told, number one, that government isn't funding this work. That some rich lawyer is funding it. Name will be left out, who I've heard. The second thing I've been told, and Mr. Harris, I believe you drive that road quite a bit, right?
Yes, on occasion. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I used to drive that road a lot more frequently when perhaps I, had a different career and obviously worked in that area. But certainly, to your point, I do tend to drive that road quite often because I like the view.
Right. So, good, great. Now, over the years, I'm sure that you have seen the variety of activity that takes place from the dock all the way up to past the Shoe Tree.
Mm-hmm.
You see cars going there, people at lunchtime, they pull up under the casuarina trees, along there, have lunch, beautiful view of the sea. And they are early morning, you see people go there fishing, they park and they walk along the beach. Now, we used to have a good beach here to walk on, matter of fact, from all the way up by Captain Charles's house. But since the corrupt planning board given permission to put all those rocks further up, the flow of sand has been reduced, and so we've lost the beach going west from the public beach, the dock. Going west, we no longer have the width of sand that we used to have there. And a lot of those properties have now become waterfront properties because they've allowed them also now to put in sea walls, vertical piling, and so there's no beach at all.
Mr. Billy, if you'd like to stay on the line with us, we're going to take a quick break right here now. And for the record, we'll be back in just a few minutes. And welcome back to For the Record this wonderful Monday morning here in our beautiful islands. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Connor here today. We have Councillor Austin Harris in studio with us this morning. We're talking about a number of things. Right now we have a caller still on the air, Mr. Billy Adam. Mr. Adam, you were discussing with Councillor Harris about the changes or things that you're seeing happening in the South Sound area and your call for a meeting to find out more details on what you see happening and what you see taking place.
That is correct, ma'am, and thank you for the extra time. And I would invite anyone to go on the Department of Planning or the whatever they call the Education something such minister that has the Beach Access Report 2017, and go to page 448. And Mr. Harris, you might want to make a note of that. 448 begins the South Sound section. And when we go from the dock going east, like the shoe tree, for instance, is not recognized, is not reported on. You know how long that shoe tree has been there? 20, 30 years maybe?
The tree itself, Mr. Billy, but not with the shoes on it. That's pretty new. A few years.
No, it's been a lot of time. I've been walking now.
Okay.
I walk that area, and then all along there, people go down there to the sea. From going east from the launching ramp, there are all those spots along there that we used to go down and have access through. Of course, now we can have it. And in 2001, and I don't know if Miss Georgette might be listening, but in 2001, when in the South Sound Community Hall, when Mr. Lem Hurlston was the JP and signed a lot of the affidavits, I signed on that occasion as well. And many other people signed for these right-of-ways going along South Sound Road. And the campers, I'm sure you've seen the campers there for 20, 30 years.
Yes.
Just east of the dock, starting along there. That spot is not recognized under these drawings, under this report. And you know, they took down the casuarina trees by the dock because the apartments opposite their view was blocked. And so they cut down the trees. And as a matter of fact, along there, going east, they've also cut down some trees and make it convenient for the people opposite to have better views of the sea.
I believe Hurricane Ivan took a lot of those trees out too, Mr. Billy, if I'm correct.
They took some, but they took them because, again, the sea came in further because we lost the mangroves to the east, the stabilizing mangrove up to the east. And so we've had this erosion that has taken place along there. And they've allowed them, if you notice also, up in Red Bay, opposite Hurley Supermarket, to take out a whole swath of mangroves again gone. And they got rocked along the foreshore. So we're going from beachfront that we used to have along there to waterfront property. And I don't know, it's just so frustrating to see the degradation and the way Caymanians are pushed to the back of the bus, our consideration for these developers that come in.
But
and now,
Mr. Billy,
if the boardwalk goes in the way I'm told it's going to go in, and that could be 100% wrong, and I hope it's wrong, people will no longer have a spot to park east of the Red Bay launching ramp, the whole way up. So where the cars could park under the casuarina trees and have lunch, or they could go in the afternoon with their children along the foreshore there.
Mr. Billy, we thank you so much for calling us this morning, and of course, Councillor Harris is going to address your concerns. I think the best way that he can at this point.
Yeah.
But thank you for the call, Mr. Billy. We appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Billy, for your call, and certainly your passion as always for the environment, which is well known. You know, to the issues of what is being developed on South Sound, I believe, as you stated before, I think that the plans are for a boardwalk. This is not a new development. It is something that has been talked about for a number of years. We looked at it from the standpoint of personal safety for both persons walking or running as well as persons cycling. I recall, I think it was a few years ago, we had a well-known individual lost their life on that roadside because of the narrow corridor, because of the lack of lighting. So the boardwalk was decided from the standpoint, number one, to improve safety of pedestrians, but also to improve the aesthetics and the beauty of South Sound because it is well traveled. In terms of, you know, the bygone era of those persons perhaps fishing from that spot, or perhaps even, you know, sunbathing or bathing, honestly, I can't say that I've personally seen a vast number of fishermen or a vast amount of, you know,
I travel
sunbathers.
the road. I travel that road every morning for work because I enjoy the serenity of the ocean, and I come home every evening, and the numbers are I mean, I appreciate what Mr. Billy is saying, but in all honesty, I travel that road twice a day, and I have for many, many years because I live in the Eastern Districts.
I don't
don't
believe that the boardwalk will take away from the beauty of it, or marginalize Caymanians in any way. We talk about the removal of the mangroves, and again, yes, that has happened. Hurricane Ivan, to your point, played a major role in that. There have been changes along our coastal, areas in the Cayman Islands over a great many number of years. Some good, some bad, but certainly on the issue of the need for a public meeting. Again, the planning law would have required any infrastructure development in that area. Notice would have had to have been sent out to adjacent landowners.
Yes.
And based on any complaints or otherwise, that would obviously determine the progress of whether or not that boardwalk proceeds. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of any significant complaints about that in that area. Certainly, if there are significant complaints, I haven't heard them. Right. But perhaps if there are significant complaints, then perhaps then is the time for a public meeting. But again, I reiterate the fact that these discussions have been ongoing for a number of years, and I believe, in large part, it will improve the beauty of South Sound for those persons wanting to be, in that area. It certainly will improve the safety factor. But if there are complaints or members of the public that, disagree with it, then by all means, let's hear those concerns.
Right. We have some callers on the air. To caller number 1, you have a question or comment this morning for us here on For the Record?
Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
In regards to Mr. Billy, I remember the Premier was on the radio some time ago talking in regards to that boardwalk that was going to be put down there in South Sound. And I listened to him on the radio, and then I called him while he was on the radio, and I was questioning him about it, and he said that, it's going to be there for all of us to use, and the restriction would be no selling of any items or any loud music will be played on the compound, but it's going to be something that we all could enjoy when it's put up there. You understand?
Yes.
So now I got the impression when he was talking about it some time ago on the radio, I thought that the government was doing it now. I think Mr. Billy said something about it could be a mile road that some rich guy going to probably come in now and build this boardwalk. But I just want to say that, I am so sick and tired of we getting these promises that we're going to get something here in Cayman. And when you think that our own Cayman is going to build it, or part of our government going to build it, it is some stranger or some investor who's going to build these things for the people of the Cayman Islands. And I really believe that is not really fair to say that you're going to give us a boardwalk and we can't put on loud music and we can't sell no items, but it'll be available there for all of us Caymanians and all of the expats to be used and enjoy when it's put down there. And I just want to say that they did cut down some of those trees there by that dock a couple of months, or I guess like last year or so.
Yes.
Because my cousin she called me, she said, would you believe they're cutting these trees down here at the dock in South Sound? And, it just happened and forgot about it. But I want to say too, Mr. Austin, I understand that you're doing a great job in Prospect, having a lot of trees trimmed up here and there. I think the government need to take a grand tour through South Sound and see all of the private owners' trees that are hanging over our main street that need to be trimmed, because if anything ever happened that we have to drive through South Sound, we will not be able to cross because the trees are too much and they're hanging over the main street and they're coming from people's private property. And I said before and I'll say it again, if these guys cannot maintain these trees, the government need to go in there and put a lien on these people's property and cut them down. And if and when they sell or rent or whatever case may be, they pay government back the money for coming in there and trimming these trees.
All right, caller, thank you so much for calling us this morning. We do have another quick call to take before we go to our break. Caller, thank you for calling For the Record.
Good morning, Ms. Darius and Ms. Bush.
Good morning,
to you, sir.
This is a real South Sounder talking this time. It's Paul Hurston.
Good morning, Captain Paul.
Hello, Mr.
Yeah,
Hurston.
speaking about this boardwalk that they're putting down there, Well, that's just pretty soon that you won't be able to use the dock. That's just the beginning of it, though, because they want to remove the dock. I'm sure that's in the plans of removing the ramp from there, because that's in the way of this big development across the street. And about taking down those, it was an explanation from a government figure about a person who about taking down those. Well, I'm going to call them what we know them, willow trees.
Mm-hmm. Weeping willow.
They say it was cracking up the road. I went up there and inspected that. It was no cracks in the road. What Billy said is that it was absolutely correct. They took those trees down for the purpose of facilitating the views of the apartments across the street. But what they should be focusing on is that that drain that comes out from Randagard that discharges out there, that dirty water. They're going to put this boardwalk, and I understand the bleachers and all that, so people can smell the scent. That, just because it hasn't rained here, we haven't had a flood here in a few months or a few years, it will happen again. That dirty water comes down from that drain all the way around the coast of South Sound, right down where this, right down the cemetery and all. It runs, it winds up down in the little beach by the Black Coral, Mankira, Hurston Place. You can't breathe. The stench is unbearable there. I complained about it many, many times, but nobody. That's what they should be trying to do, because we're going to get a flood again. It might be this year or next year on a hurricane, but that is it's a health problem. It's a health problem, and nobody's thinking of anything about that.
Mr. Paul, Captain Paul, thank you so much for calling us and pointing us to this issue this morning. We're going to go to a quick break now. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Councillor Harris here on the issues from our callers. And thank you for joining us here on For the Record this morning. We're in the heat of callers calling this morning, and we do have 2 callers on the air. Thank you, caller number 1, for joining us this morning on For the Record. Do you have a question or comment for our guest this morning?
Hello, my apologies for calling back, but I got to correct some facts.
Hi, Mr. Billy. How are you?
The unfortunate death that occurred just a couple hundred feet west of the South Sound Old Crew Road intersection. And that occurred because, well, we know it was drinking and the rest of it. And it occurred quite a ways off the road. The poor lady was off to the right-hand side, walking on the verge. Now, back to some of the various other comments that were made there. I thank Captain Paul for calling, because he remembers how it was taken out. And some of the other casuarina trees that were taken out along there were taken out also for view purposes. And Mr. Harris, the unfortunate thing is the feeling of us being pushed to one side to facilitate this form of development. When you drive along there and you will see what's happened. Another right-of-way that allowed people to get to the sea. Then you come off Old Crew Road. If you go in west, you look to the left and you will see the right-of-way. They now have about 8 feet of rock stones, so you can't get down to the sea the way you could get down before.
Is that private property now, Mr. Billy? Would that property be owned by someone, by a landowner?
It is owned, yes, but you see, with a right-of-way, the usage of the right-of-way has been destroyed by the rocks. And this is where it comes back to the prescriptive rights under the prescription law. When in 2001, over 500 affidavits went in for these, to secure these right-of-ways to continue for the public. But government has ignored the people, all for the development. If you read the 2003 report, they went so far as to put in that law, in that report, but we didn't consider this one because we know that there's prospective development, like up in Barkas area and some of the South Sound area. That is in violation of the law. The prescription law, section 2 and 4, in violation of the Registered Land Law 138, in violation of our Constitution, Section 16, and in violation of the Penal Code, Section 121, which says that when people do things that is not lawful in government, it's a 2-year prison sentence. And it's getting time to report those that violate the law to be reported to the police, for the police to investigate and start locking up people. Also, when ministers get involved, that's also covered in the penal code, and they can go to jail too. And that's where we get into in this country.
All right, Mr. Billy, as always, thank you for pointing out these things to us. And we're going to move on to another caller right now. Thank you for calling For the Record this morning. Do you have a question or comment to make this morning?
Thank you, Donna. Good morning.
You're welcome.
And
good morning.
Mr. Harris.
Good morning, my friend.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much. How are you, sir?
Just a couple of issues that, I'd like to speak on.
Mm-hmm.
One is on the boardwalk in South Sound.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize what was wrong with that tendering when it was being tendered. But I personally, now everything is clear and makes a lot of sense to me how it went about and a certain company getting it. I know there was at least 6 different contractors, local contractors. Let me put it like this: indigenous Caymanians that is bid on that project, and it went to Phoenix. And from what I'm understanding, Phoenix was the lowest bid. All right. Now, the other 6 contractors, Cayman contractors, has very little work. Phoenix has work all over this island, right? But it just seems like, whatever we have done in the past to deserve what we are getting in this country, I can't find no justification for it. Because you can tell me that there's a lot of lazy Caymanians, but let me tell you, Cayman didn't get where we are today by being lazy. I am one for that, because there's not a laser bone in my body. Okay? Another issue is, when are we going to get a police department in this country that cares about Cayman? Another issue, I made comments years ago about these people running about with masks. Now it's becoming so local that they're in the supermarkets, they're all over the place with masks. When will this be addressed? Mr. Arkerman from West Bay has called up the radio shows. I get sick of hearing him sometimes, because he have made issues with so many different problems in this country. And up to this day, I haven't heard one that say, we've addressed Mr. Arkerman, one of his issues. All we're doing is getting on the radio, blowing off for a little bit of steam, getting rid of our frustrations, and nothing is happening. When are something going to happen in this country? And I just want to say to the Caymanian people, all right, be careful with what is happening in this country. Be careful with who is coming into your house and doing your domestic work and this and that, because you mightn't see it the way I'm seeing it, but a lot of what is happening in this country today is a lot of inside work. So be aware, be careful, just make sure you select the right person to put in your house if you're going to leave them there to clean your house. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris and Donna, for listening to me.
Sir, thank you so much. To his point about a mask, it became known to me in the last few years, and we see it all the time. Mm-hmm. When somebody comes to your yard to do landscaping work.
Yep. They're taking their shirts or otherwise.
They're taking their shirts. They're covering their faces. Yeah. I've said to my husband, look, I want no one in my yard that is going to be covering their face. I don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be in the hot sun and it's too hot for you, then maybe you need a different profession. Yeah. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. Landscape owners, I'm sorry, you need to have certain standards for the people who are going to do your clients' and customers' yards and properties. they need to stop wearing their shirts and stuff around their faces. It's just, it's bad business.
Certainly, again, you're entitled to your opinion. Certainly, the caller is entitled to his. I certainly, err on the side of, consideration for those persons, laborers who work outside. It sometimes can be very, very hot.
Yes.
However,
and it just gets hotter when you're covered.
However, where I agree with the caller is that when construction workers or landscape or yard workers or persons who perhaps might find themselves outside working, when they leave the job site, these masks or otherwise should come off because they don't need it. They wear masks. They wear sunglasses, obviously to protect their eyes against both glare as well as debris. On the job site, if it's not breaking the rules, if they have a right to be there, in other words, if they're an employee of a contractor that has an ID badge saying he's supposed to be there, he's a mason or he's a bricklayer or he's a steel worker or whatever the case may be, on the job site, I personally don't have too much of an issue with it, but it is
wear a hat.
But it is when they find themselves off the job site, walking, whether it be on public roads, going into stores and whatnot. I agree. In this era, it's perhaps unnecessary and it sends the wrong messages. So I will certainly take the point on that.
We have another caller on the air. Thank you for calling For the Record this morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you both?
Very good, sir.
Great,
and yourself. Thank you for your call.
Yes, and as old people used to say, I'm as fine as sifted flour this morning.
That's awesome.
That's excellent.
Of course, and on the other hand, they said, of course, if you get too fine, if flour gets too fine, the wind will blow it away. Anyway, just one or two little things I wanted to quickly mention.
Yes.
First of all, it's called about the chipping off the delinquents and so on and so forth. Yes, as was said in the old days, it was the reformers of school and so on. Well, I think that, and then you also mentioned the fact about maybe going to the army, whatever. Well, of course, that send them to places like that will help. Now, I have spoken to some politicians, but I haven't heard the matter raised about the possibility of a Marine training school or a seaman's training school. I know they have one in Honduras that they train youngsters, not necessarily trouble youngsters, but people that they want something different. They're not too academically inclined, and I think that would be one of the answers to our problem with or young people, because currently the system is putting out too many young people who are not numerous, they're not literate, but if they could be in a situation that they're trained, we need a better school for where they can be trained, given skills that will help them to survive, making souvenirs or whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a case, and Mr. Harris, maybe you will agree with me, that we had a training facility where, because what built up the Cayman Islands? Wasn't it our men going to sea?
Yes, sir.
And they got all the tool, the cruise industry and stuff like that. I don't see why we still should not be capitalizing on that. The Eastern Caribbean, the Philippines, and various ones, they're capitalizing on that. We could start a school, as I said. There's one in Honduras where they train them to be seamen, they're trained to be a captain, they're trained to be AB, they're trained to be a cook, and so on and so forth. And they can go direct to a cruise ship with minimum training. I think we need to do something like that. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to say was, which is a little off the topic, is that I think it was last week, maybe Thursday or Friday, someone came on the air and complained about the community officer for East End, Ms. Delmira Kurtzman-Bodden, that she doesn't do anything, just walk up and down. That is not true. I tell you, I've never seen a person more dedicated. That woman, she's there with if the Easterners in birth, in death, whatever is going on, whatever human activity is going on, that woman can step in. She is there, she helps the elderly, she the youth, and so on and so forth. And I'm a local pastor in the community, and she will call me and she'll say, well, brother, so-and-so needs prayer. Brother, what can we do about so-and-so to help so-and-so? And
Sir?
I know.
We're good. Can you just hold on for us? We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. And welcome back to For the Record. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orritt Connor this morning. We have a caller in the air. Just before we went to the break, he was referring to a call that came in on one of the shows here on Radio Cayman last week, complaining about a community officer, Miss Delmira, in the district of East End. Caller, I believe that Miss Delmira also has responsibility for the district of North Side now as well.
Yes, she does have responsibility for the district of North Side itself. I don't know how she's going to manage, because that woman works tirelessly, but she will do her best, and I'm sure the North Siders will be happy. But yes, the person said that she doesn't do anything. That was very unfair, and I've said untrue. The only way that maybe they had an experience, there's some things that the community officer cannot do. For instance, matters social services, or matters to children, related to children and stuff like that, or if the court makes a decision or something, we cannot blame the community officer for that. That they have to be subject to whatever is taking place. So maybe it might be some situation like that with that person.
Well, sir, we know how the world works. There'll always be people who complain, but I've heard nothing but good things about that community officer. Sir, we'd like to thank you this morning for joining us here. And for the record, we do have a number of other callers on the air. Caller number 1, thank you for calling For the Record this morning. Do you have a question or a comment for us?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
morning, Austin. How are you? Morning.
Excellent. Good morning to you, my dear. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome. Morning, Lady Donna.
Morning.
I'm just calling regarding this boardwalk. This boardwalk, Austin, they're setting you up for failure. I think you should leave that alone.
Okay.
Whoever gave you that task to do, deal with your district first. That's not your district.
Well, it's not my task. It was a question that came on the air, and certainly I'm seeking to answer it. But it's an administrator that's not attached to me, and certainly not an initiative that I'm directly involved in. But certainly seeking to answer the question as they come in.
Leave it alone. Come back to your community. That is a big hazard. I almost crashed my car. They got these cones in the road. The road is even smaller. You don't know if you're driving on the right or the left. It's not going to do it. I don't know what's going to happen there. But if they ever build a boardwalk, I know they're going to have a lot of accidents. Anyway, let me leave that alone and come back to our community. Austin.
Yes, ma'am.
You all had a meeting the other night. You need to come into the community and have a meeting in the areas where there are possible crimes, actions that's been happening.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
All
right. Thank you, caller. We do have another caller on the air. Thank you for calling us this morning. Do you have a question or comment?
Hello?
Hello. Good morning.
Hello?
Yes. Good morning.
Yes. I just had a call back in regards to the London and the contractors out there with their stuff all wrapped up. Austin, sweetheart, we have had construction work in Cayman from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young boy, I don't think you recall seeing too many people wrap themselves up. They had a hat on and a pair of shades and a long sleeve shirt or long pants, or either pair of short pants, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for the last 5, 8 years, 10 years, this wrapping has become a norm in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be under control because we don't know who is who. Up at the airport, we got the workers up there working in the airport, right? And we got visitors coming in all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these visitors are looking at these people like, why are they so wrapped up? Ella, why are they so wrapped up?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they around the airport? I say because they're working in the airport. So if you think that people not looking and wondering and thinking and trying to find out what's going on, I know the guys who's working up there in the hot sun, but that's a job that they choose. If they want to protect themselves, you don't need to send to Mexico and get some them big old hats and wear out there in the hot sun, because there is no excuse to have your body so wrapped out in the hot sun. You took a job in the hot sun. You're the one that got to protect your skin with a long sleeve shirt, but not your face wrapped to the max that nobody can identify you. That's what we all are concerned about. And it's Cayman Islands. And Ms. Donna, I agree with you. Nobody coming to my yard with a wrapped face. Nobody to cut my lawn.
Well, caller, thank you so much for calling us here on For the Record this morning. Mr. Harris, back to her point and this continuing conversation. You know, our contractors, our construction workers, traditionally have always worn hats. That's how you keep the sun off of your face, not by wrapping it, which makes you even hotter. If heat is your excuse, then wrapping your face is certainly not going to help that. We do have one more caller on the air. Thank you for calling For the Record this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Harris.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, this is Ivan.
Yes, sir.
I caught the tail end or something just now. What bill you say coming to the house? What first offense or something? Warning?
The Youth Justice Amendment Bill, which seeks to make provision for young persons below the age of 18 to be cautioned.
I think it's timely because Northwood is full up with people now that should not be there to a certain extent. I could go back in my days, it's a long time ago. We did something even after we started going to sea, like stealing chickens for the joke of it and cook them.
Yes, sir.
One night, someone went out to get chickens and came back empty-handed, and your cousin George Plug that you don't know went back and brought back a turkey.
Who says Cayman is not resourceful?
Own too far west, but I know how turkeys and what my next door neighbor. So we used to do it for
You're letting
sport.
all the secrets, Mr. Ivan.
Scandalizing the family and all that, my
We
goodness.
used to, you heard
What
about
nuts?
George Plug?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so then there's the morning, and them had locked us up for that. We would have got back to see neither. You get what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, but think about it now, it wasn't exactly a sport from the people that we were stealing the chickens from. You know what I mean? But it was a sport for us, so.
Yes.
And the urine test that they brought in, a lot of us would have got back to sea if they had that. In them days, we did not have Northwood. After 6 months, you had to go to Jamaica, to prison.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little bit of what went on, and some of them people in Northwood, I'd say should not be there for some sort on the right track. So you are going back to work now, so you all have a blessed day.
You too, Mr. Ivan, and thanks for the call.
Indeed. A little levity there to end the callers. I just want an opportunity just to pick up on some of the questions raised, particularly the local pastor who called in and raised issues about reform schools gone by, and in particular the need for marine training. Again, perhaps you hadn't tuned in yet, but certainly I want to restate again that is the thought process behind the National Coast Guard, an opportunity for, again, our young people to perhaps find, correct their ways, if you will. Again, the National Coast Guard is not intended just as a reformatory training arena, but instead will seek to draw on our maritime history and our maritime culture and to bring that back to life for perhaps the next generation. But certainly there is room for wayward youth that can learn a lot from that culture, that marine culture. And certainly I would say to him that it is certainly on the government's radar. Certainly, I also want to state that when we look at the Cadet Corps, and again, certainly, Mr. Steve McField, noted attorney, can speak to this. He was one of the founders of the Cadet Corps. But the Cadet Corps, in its original model, was modeled to be more in the line of a Navy or a maritime unit as opposed to the infantry type of unit that we have now.
Right.
And the basic logic behind it was that, well, we have no army in the Cayman Islands, so why would we otherwise be training an infantry division? But certainly we are surrounded by water and we have a maritime history, so therefore the early modeling of the Cadet Corps was more in line with a naval academy or naval training, so to speak, than perhaps infantry and otherwise. We can talk at great length as to perhaps what changes occurred and why they occurred and what those reasons were.
Right.
But certainly, again, when we look at the need for reform. There's also the Cadet Corps, which is also available. The other caller talked about, having more meetings in the area of Prospect and Red Bay. I want to say we had our first outdoor meeting of the Prospect Community Group last week, Monday, at the McCrush Grocery Store. It was a huge success. And certainly we can anticipate that whether it be the Prospect Community Group or whether it be myself as a representative hosting my regular meetings for the community, it will be in the community. We choose, and I'll just defend myself, I choose to host in the Seafarers Hall because you never know what the weather's going to do.
Right.
You never know if it's going to rain, you never know if it's going to be hot, you never know if the mosquitoes are going to show up or not show up. So it's nice to have a coverage structure.
And it's in your neighborhood.
And it's comfortable for everyone. But I take the caller's point that certainly we need to have more activities in the communities, perhaps where the recent crime events have taken place. I'm encouraged to see that those things are slowly improving, but I take the caller on their point. And lastly, I just certainly want to defend the community development officer for East End and North Side, Ms. Delmira. I think she's a wonderful person.
Yes.
I think, we ask a lot of our community development officers, but certainly her historical track record is that of caring and being very diligent in her duties. So certainly if there are complaints, this is the first I'm hearing of them. To the caller's point, sometimes we ask more of our community development officers than perhaps they can actually solve on their own. But I want to thank Ms. Delmira and all of the community development officers for the time and dedication for the important work that they do in the Cayman Islands.
This is the human thing. You do good all the days of your life. You never hear anything about it, and you just upset one person, and then your whole reputation can go down the drain. But I think she's a wonderful person as well.
And on the South Sound Dock, again, listen, if there are more than a handful of persons who are complaining about the boardwalk, if there are adjacent landowners specifically who will be negatively impacted, that share some of the views and concerns that the one or two callers have expressed this morning, then by all means let there be a public meeting.
Right.
But again, I state that these discussions aren't brand new. They've been ongoing for a number of years, and I would dare say there have been discussions in this regard. But certainly, in terms of transparency and accountability, if there are a majority of persons that are concerned about the development of the boardwalk, then by all means let's have a public meeting.
Yes.
But also let's look at the other point about who should pay for it. Listen, I'm a big believer government shouldn't have to pay for everything.
Certainly
we
not.
remember the 4 or 5 years of austerity, which was an example of what happens when the government gets over its head in debt. That means the cost of living goes up. It's a double-edged sword. So another caller called earlier on suggesting there needs to be an ambulance in every district. Yes, it would be nice, but there's a cost to that, not just for the vehicles themselves, but of course the infrastructure to support it.
Yes.
So it's a lot of money. Let's face it, and that money could be better utilized elsewhere. If there is a deficiency in terms of ambulances or emergency services getting from one location to the next, then perhaps we can make a business case for setting up satellite offices or outposts in the middle somewhere. But there is a carrying cost, and the expectation that the government should fund everything. Well, it may suggest to persons that, Caymanians are in control, but really, how much are we in control if we're increasing our debt level? And of course, somebody has to pay for that, and we don't have, income taxes in this country. So again, the money has to come from somewhere, and the government seeks to be a bit more responsible, whether it be a boardwalk or elsewhere. I mean, it's a question of what are the criteria that you put in place for whomever the developers and builders will be. What are the rules? Who will have usage? Who will be allowed to use it? What will you be able to do? What won't you be able to do? That is where you set the rules and the guidelines. But if somebody is willing to pick up the tab, why not?
Well, I remember one of the callers was saying that she remembered that there were going to be certain restrictions put in place, like no loud music, so on and so forth. I don't live on the beach, and I don't want any loud music in my neighborhood.
No, of course not.
I'm just saying. We're going to take a break here now, and for the record, we'll be right back. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Donna Bush in for Mr. Orritt Connor this morning. We're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, thank you for calling us here on For the Record this morning. Can you please go ahead with your question or comment? Caller,
Hello?
are you there? Yes, sir. Thank you for calling For the Record.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have a couple of comments about the elderly seamen and the youth. For one, the seafarers grant that you get, I understand that the cabinet can approve the change for it, that you can receive it when you live overseas. And remember, there's a lot of old seamen that there's about $800 US a month. You kind of hard to pay rent around here. But many other countries, Nicaragua, Honduras, you can live down there, get a caregiver, and still have some extra money. Okay? And I think it would be well for the government to look into that the elderly can live overseas and still receive their payment. See?
Okay, sir.
The second thing, other thing is, with the young people, I think that one of the biggest crimes against the young people is these laws about the marijuana. Now, we know after 70 years we will use it as a medicine. And we also know that young people like to experiment with different things. You've had presidents and everything say that when they were young, they experimented with marijuana. Right? But yeah, a young person gets caught with marijuana, they set prison, or it's on their record, which hinders them from getting a job. And a lot of them may use it ganja in the early stages, and when they get older, they don't use it. You know, but it affects their future for what they want to do. Another interesting thing I found is that years ago, some people come down here from the States or somewhere selling very hard designer drugs. And a lot of guys that used to smoke ganja took it from them and threw it away and warned them not to come back to came on with these. So they helped a lot of people by their actions. Again, a lot of people is not using other drugs, you know, not as cigarettes. So I need to look into that, to decriminalize it, especially with the young people coming up, right?
Sir, thank you so much for your call this morning here. And for the record, we're just wrapping up the last few minutes of the show, but we have one more call to take this morning. Caller, thank you for calling us this morning on For the Record. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning again, Donna and Mr. Harris.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Hill.
I had to call back, but I just want to clear up with Mr. Harris way that he sees the covering up of the mosque and this thing for his construction concern. Mr. Harris, my good friend Austin.
Yes, sir.
I've been working in construction. You know this as well as I do.
Yes,
all of my life, right? Miss Donna is absolutely right in her comments about wear a hat. If you can't get a big old straw hat, I know a guy right now, a Caymanian, that comes into Walker's Road gas station every morning, and if you see this hat that he has, it's about 3 to 4 inches in diameter. Right. It's so big. So wear a hat or a cap or something. I've been in it all of my life, and what is this? What is wrong with sunscreen if you fear that you're going to get sunburned?
Okay.
I mean, this thing is going to cause a lot of issues in this country, and the sooner we can address it. And another point Ms. Donna made that I meant to mention, my gardener was bringing one guy around my yard that was all masked up. Well, last week, as a Caymanian in this country, I've had enough, and I say, no more of it. So I told our gardener, I say, you can come back to my yard to do my grass, but that guy you got that is masked, he is not coming back in my yard, period. And if you have a problem with that, and you have to go along with him, then you know what, I'll find somebody else. But I'm not accepting these kind of things that is happening in this country anymore, because somebody need to put their foot down. Somebody need to make a stand for what is happening. Maybe it's not a problem. You don't see a problem right now, which it is. But it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow till it becomes stage 4. And then what happens? It's too late.
Mr. Hill, thank you so much for your call. We're going to spend our last little under 10 minutes hearing from Councillor Harris on the number of issues that we've heard brought to us this morning by our callers.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you to all the callers, by the way.
No, thank you absolutely to all the callers. You know, sometimes you learn a lot when callers disagree with you, and I think that's exciting, and I certainly validate all of the comments. They're important to the callers. It should be important to us. Certainly on the on the mass construction workers. Again, if it becomes a problem where perhaps there, like I said to you, on the job site is one thing. Outside of the job site, in civil society and public society, there's really no need for it. But I take the caller's point and your point that those in the past have done it, whether it be with a large thatch ground hat or sunscreen or hats or sunglasses.
See the face of who is on my property. There's no reason why you can't show me your face. I don't know who you are.
Absolutely.
Anything happens on my property, and all I can say is somebody came here to do my yard. I don't know who they are. Can I identify them? No, I can't.
Sure.
I mean, and if people have issues, we need to get enough guts to ask these persons nicely.
Yeah.
If you're going to come and do business with me and I'm going to pay you my hard-earned dollars, I need you to remove the clothing from your face. Please.
Fair enough. Works for me. Hey, it's a matter of individual choice, and certainly we can set the guidelines for construction workers, laborers, outside laborers, or otherwise as part of the trade and business guidelines, if you will, if necessary. If it's a point that persons are significantly concerned about, and perhaps also if there is any empirical data to suggest that construction workers with masked faces are turning around on their lunch breaks and robbing people, then obviously we want to nip this problem in the butt before it starts. I take the last caller's point. I remembered his first name. Just came to me. Certainly on the last caller before the last, talking about the increase to veterans and seamen for their contribution. Well, again, just last year we increased the ex gratia payment for veterans and seamen, and some civil servants. From it's an increase of an additional $100 this year, and a following another $100 next year. So these increases are happening. There is a logical reason behind, of course, persons receiving assistance in the Cayman Islands versus those persons who choose not to live in the Cayman Islands. The policy is simply this. We understand the cost of living is such in the Cayman Islands. We understand that these persons have made contributions to the Cayman Islands, and we can, as a government, help wherever possible. But we have no control over the persons who are living overseas. We don't know whether these persons are receiving aid from other sources. We don't know their living conditions, et cetera, et cetera.
It's called double dipping or something.
So, I mean, again, there were changes in the criteria, and I believe those changes were logical and necessary. Again, we try to assist those that we can help. We try to assist first and foremost our own, and certainly those veterans and former seamen are top of that list.
Do we know do we have any data on exactly how many of our former seamen are living overseas? It can't be the significant amount.
I don't believe there is a significant amount, but I know there is an exercise currently taking place, both in terms of the veterans and seamen, in particular, determining those who are on the list to receive ex gratia payments if they're still alive.
Yes.
Number one, and if those resources are being used for them or their families. We're also doing an exercise for persons who are receiving permanent financial assistance. Again, circumstances change.
Yes.
From the original point at which you received that assistance, social welfare, to today.
And we know there are persons out there who have been accepting these funds.
Yes.
For persons who may not be with us anymore,
Quite
and
right.
That's not correct.
Correct, right? Because what that does is it takes much needed resources away from people who really need it. Yes. And I can tell you in the 10 months or so that I've been there that there are people who are in significant need, and don't think for a second that the government is oblivious to that fact. We need to improve on those situations and to improve in terms of the quality of life that our people enjoy, and that is top of the mind, a priority for every legislator, whether you're on the government side or otherwise. And to think otherwise is ignorant, frankly. But certainly, to the caller's point, there's a reason why we seek to look after those who live here, reside in the Cayman Islands, as those perhaps who live elsewhere. And there is an exercise currently underway. It's not intended to deprive anyone who needs this assistance to stop those payments, not in any way whatsoever, but is to your point, ensuring that those persons who are receiving truly do need it. And if they don't need it, certainly let's correct it so that we can free up opportunities for other persons who do need it. Because there is an annual budget allotment, and that usually covers, a certain number of people. I think we've got in the region of 947 persons receiving permanent financial assistance. That's in addition to the 800 plus who are on the Seamen's and Veterans list. And of course, let's not forget those persons who are receiving temporary assistance. Unfortunately, there is no money tree growing in the backyard of government. There may be a lot of people who need help.
My backyard either.
I know exactly. I was looking for those seeds myself, but they just don't seem to exist, those magical beanstalks or otherwise. Yes, the reality is a lot of people are hurting in this country, but there are a lot of people who aren't. There are a lot of people who are receiving that shouldn't be receiving. We hear those rumors all the time. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeking to do in this exercise is to validate whether these rumors and accusations are accurate, whether or not there are persons who are receiving who shouldn't be receiving, so that we can truly help those who are in need and perhaps encourage those who aren't to go to work like the rest of us.
Mr. Austin Harris, it's always a pleasure to have you with us here on For the Record. To our many callers this morning, thank you for joining us here on For the Record. We hope that you got some answers to your questions. Don't forget, at 10:30 this morning on 105.3, that's Breeze FM, you can go live and listen to Youth Parliament, this year's 11th annual Youth Parliament, as well as to tune into CIG TV to hear those proceedings as well. I'm Donna Bush, wishing each and every one of you a wonderful and, of course, a very, very safe day here in our beautiful Cayman Islands.